Terra's story, Chapter 15. Terra looked at the image Joni pulled up on the big screen of her computer monitor. So Handy is, a man? The high cheekbones, aquiline nose, and full lips were delicate enough to have been either male or female, but for the handlebar mustache. A flamboyant, floppy-brimmed pirate hat sat atop a mass of black curls. That pic is from his mugbook page, from Halloween last year. Looks like he was Captain Hook from the Peter Pan movies. He was quite the party guy until recently. Here's another pic, Joni murmured, clicking onto a different screen. Driver's license. This photo showed dark hair slicked back and a carefully trimmed mustache like the one the silent film heartthrob Errol Flynn wore. Terra's intercom buzzed. Joni reached over and pressed the button. Yes? Oh, hi, Joni. Handy Carlson is here to see Terra. Joe is on his way up. Shall I send Mr. Carlson with him? Sure, I'll meet them at the elevator. Joni swiped the lunch debris off Terra's desk and into the wastebasket. And I'll tell Cap he's here. Thanks, Joni. Terra paused a moment, then moved over to sit on the saggy brown sofa to make the interview more casual and comforting. She was glad she had when Handy entered her office, dragging a roller suitcase behind him. His thin body was trembling inside the voluminous raincoat. Wet, his eyes were red and puffy, and his nose was running. She offered her hand and got a limp squeeze in return. Can I get you something, Handy? Terra asked, calming the butterflies in her belly. A sandwich? Coffee? He sat heavily on the sofa. Something to eat, yes. Turkey, maybe. Do you have tea, something herbal? I'll get it, Terra, Joan offered and slipped out, closing the door behind her. Handy lay back with his eyes closed for a long moment while Terra remained silent, then sat up and met her gaze. I'm sorry, Handy, she offered gently. Tell me about Irene. I mean, is there anything beyond what you've told me? Handy pursed his lips and glared at her. Beyond being my best friend since forever, and the only other person besides Janine I came out to? He snorted out a bitter little laugh. They're the ones who nicknamed me Handy, 'cause, having a gay friend is every woman's dream, and I was handy for so many things, like, decorating and fashion tips and advice for the lovelorn. He wiped his eyes and turned serious. Irene and I were assigned to keep an eye on posts the algorithms tagged as questionable. We watched for child porn, sex trafficking, sedition, that sort of thing. Censors, then, Terra commented quietly. Would you prefer we not protect public health and well-being? Handy snarled back. Or is that why you blew me off when I called the first time? First 2 times? Terra sucked in a deep breath and waited until she could feel the oxygen expanding in her body before she answered. What about all the good stuff that gets blocked or even deplatformed on Mugbook and all your cohorts, Fungram and all that? Things like natural remedies that people can use to heal without going into bankruptcy. What about doctors and politicos with a conscience who offer facts that contradict what the powers that be are saying? There are so many instances. Terra paused to suck in another deep breath before continuing. There are so many lies out there causing so much confusion. How do you expect anyone to know what to believe? Terra braced herself for a quick, angry rebuttal, but instead, Handy wilted. Look, Kano, we don't make the rules and we don't design the algorithms. And yeah, we know what happens out there. That's why I tried to talk to you directly. Did you know Irene called me too? Terra watched his face. Nothing but sadness flickered there. Yeah, when you didn't respond to my second call, she said she'd try. We were pretty nervous about this bunch. He blinked quickly, but a couple of tears escaped anyhow. You're talking about the BTI group? Terra wanted to confirm. Yes, of course, Handy sniffed, then sat up and leaned forward. Bioterrorism International. You didn't see a lot of their stuff because we pulled it. You and Irene, Terra reiterated. Me and Irene. Handy confirmed, then closed his eyes and lifted his face as though to send his words to a higher dimension. Don't you worry, Irene. I'm not going to let them get away with any of it, especially not taking you out. You know how much I miss you. He released a ragged breath, took another deep inhale, then turned back to Terra, a look of determination strengthening the lines of his face. When he spoke, his voice was firm again. It was bad enough, the threats to knock off thousands of people in this area, but the ways they planned to use were going to create real havoc in the biosystems. I love this planet, even the parts of it where we live that have so many people, so many cars, so much noise, and so much pressure to be a certain way. So much pressure to keep all the isms going to separate us. I feel it. Don't you know how much discrimination a gay person gets on a day-to-day basis? Sure, it's better now, most days, until it's not. The pressures are relentless again to make us subhuman or even demons, so I can sure relate to every other group that keeps getting told, you're useless, you're less than because you... Now Handy watched Terra's face closely. I get it, Handy, she admitted. I really do. I watched what my dad went through when he was a congressman from Hawaii. I know Hawaiian history, how the white men made the Queen sign over their rights, their land, and their sovereignty with a gun at her head. I look more like Mom, so I haven't dealt with racism directly, but my heart has sure hurt for people I love and care about. Some of my best friends, one is Myra Mokta, a full-blood Native American, and another, Rebecca, is Black, and the discrimination against them hurts me directly. And sometimes the reverse discrimination, like some of Mira's and Rebecca's friends who resent me and get mad at them for consorting with Whitey. Terra placed a comforting hand on his forearm. So, sorry if I made you feel judged. What else was it about BTI that made you take them so seriously? Accidentally overhearing a conversation. Janine's department was on a different floor than ours, and Irene and I often waited for her in the stairwell. We'd all traipse down just to get our muscles loosened when we went out, then we'd take the elevator back up. Irene and I were tired that day, so we weren't talking, weren't even scrolling on our phones. Just chilling. The voices started, and we were both startled and started looking around. There was an air vent opening in one of the walls of the stairwell. I got the shivers when I heard them say the name of my street. The park near me. They were talking about my neighborhood. Irene lived a block over. When I looked at her, I could see she was triggered too. They were talking about taking out the water purification plant, blocking the places where the raw sewage goes into the treatment tanks so it spilled out into the streets, and where the storm drains would spill over into our lake. Well, the lake in our park anyhow. I got nauseous just thinking about it. Did you hear anything else? Terra leaned forward, her eyes flashing. Not that time. The voices got faint and then a door closed, so whoever it was must have left the office. It's a good thing, though, because when Janine came to join us, she hollered our names. If we could hear them, they could have heard us, too. After that, we were all careful to be quiet. We even took our shoes off on the stairs. Handy picked at a torn cuticle, his thoughts focused on that different time. Terra thought for a minute. So, there were some people within the organization, people who had an office at Mugbook, who were at the least aware of BTI, if not actively working with them? Is that what you're telling me? They were actively working with them, Kano. We started listening in from that stairwell whenever we could, and they had people inside ready to launch this crisis. People inside the electric company, inside the internet service providers, the treatment plant. People who were ready to run the ransomware. You don't need a ton of people if you have the right ones. Handy rubbed his face. Was this group, unofficial, do you think? Terra ventured the question. Probably, although who knows. Mugbook is as compartmentalized as the military, and if some big shot had a brainstorm and used company assets, they sure weren't going to leave any tracks. So do you have anything concrete, Handy? Like names? Links in suspect organizations? Terra leaned in, her eagerness showing on her face, her hand holding a pen ready to scribble in her notebook. Handy shifted to reach into his back pocket and pulled out a piece of paper. He handed it to Terra. As she smoothed out the wrinkles, he commented, "We wrote down the names that came up, and some of them sound like nicknames, like Bucky, who we eventually linked to the water plant. We had to use details of what they talked about to figure out who works where. This one," he reached over and pointed to a name, "seems to be one of the bosses." "Mac?" Terra asked after glancing to where he pointed. Terra exhaled. "Yeah, that's not going to be easy." She scanned the list. "Only 13? Handy shrugged. "Like I said, if your people are in key positions, you don't need a lot of them. Doc seemed to be important, too. We heard the name, as in Doc wants, or Doc isn't going to like, but never could nail down the connection. Sorry, Kano. We did the best we could. Terra stood abruptly. I'm going to get Joni to work on it right away. We're going to have some deeper debrief handy. She stared him in the eye. Including you. You know things you don't know you know. We've got to create a strategy, and we can't do that without more information. Cap already has most of our bodies on the street, so it'll probably be you, me, Cap, Joni, and maybe Brian Grimm. He's new in the department, but he seems to be right on point with his intuition. Between you and me, that suggests some psychic abilities. I want to see what he can do.